All righty, it is 4 p.m. Thank you so much for being here and taking a part of your Earth Day to be with us here for our South Bay Earth Day at home. And to kick it off, we have our Chief Sustainability Officer here at the City of Chula Vista in the Office of Sustainability, Mr. Dennis Gakunga.
Well, thank you very much, Victor. I would like to start off by welcoming everybody to South Bay Earth Day 2021 at home. My name is Dennis Gakunga. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer, and I have the privilege of working with this amazing group of folks on a daily basis. We're very encouraged by the attendance. I believe as of yesterday, we had close to 100 attendees registered. So we're looking forward to this amazing lineup of speakers, sustainability topics. And of course, we're looking forward to finding out ways we can continue to help each other live a more sustainable lifestyle and work together to be advocates for sustainability and climate change. So let me start off by introducing two superstars on our team, Victor Sanchez, who will be the MC of the event, and Yasmin Corrales, who will be making things happen. So with that, enjoy the event, and I want to hand it over to Victor. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dennis. And yeah, like Dennis said, very excited to get this event kicked off. Can we go to the next slide, please, Yasmin? Excellent, thank you. So thank you again, everyone, for being here. This is Earth Day. This is South Bay Earth Day at home. So yeah, we're excited to get this event going. So this is our schedule for the day. We have all of these presentations. We'll have some more things sprinkled in between, like some Earth Day trivia questions and some community outreach advertisements. But just to go through it really quick, so we're going to start off with turn your yard into a naturescape. So we're going to learn how to do that. Very cool. And then we have our first live stream for Honeybee Production. So we're going to be going out to Potrero, California, and we do have a presentation coming for Honeybee Production. Then we'll have home energy efficiency tips and resources. And then we'll get into another live stream, which is an introduction to backyard composting, coming to you from the Living Coast Discovery Center. Then we have our Ask the Recycler session, where we have a really very knowledgeable expert at recycling here to test your knowledge. So it'll be an interactive thing. And then we have a Food Waste 101 presentation. So we're talking everything food, from food to food waste. And then we'll give you a city update on organics recycling, which is coming very soon here to the city of Chula Vista and to the entire state, actually. And then our final presentation, we will be learning how to upcycle old clothes into the latest trends. So really cool presentation, and that presenter is actually in New York. And I should have mentioned that the Living Zero Waste for 1 year, I forgot to mention that will be coming from Hawaii as well. So very cool. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our first presentation. We have Mr. Bob Coleman. He's a colleague of mine here at the City of Chula Vista. Actually, can you go back really quick? I should have mentioned a couple things. So that image that popped up. So for all of you guys attending, thank you so much for being here. But you know, you can't really have an event without any giveaways, right? So we do have an awesome Revessel lunchbox made with very high quality items, something you can reuse forever, hopefully. And the way you can win that is if you stay and you watch the entire webinar to the end, and then we're going to take all of the attendees that stayed until the end, and we're going to put you on a random raffle, and you can win that grand prize. 5 more people will also win zero waste kits with highly durable, highly reusable items within the kits. So very cool. Thank you for being here again. And I should note that this whole session will be recorded, and we will be uploading it onto our South Bay Earth Day website, as well as our Chula Vista Clean website, for you to have But if you want to take a picture of any of the slides on your mobile phone just to have, with you right now, I really encourage you to do that. But we are recording it and we will have it available for you. Okay, now we are ready for Mr. Bob Coleman, who is a colleague of mine here at the City of Chula Vista, and he will be teaching you how to naturescape your yard. Bob?
Thank you, Vic. Welcome, everyone. Naturescape is a program we have in the city to educate residents on how to apply the 5 key steps of natural yard care to create landscapes with drought-tolerant plants to conserve water and attract wildlife. Next slide, please. Before we get into the particulars of a naturescape, I wanted to talk a little bit about our relationship with nature. And much of this information is from a book called The Nature Fix by Florence Williams. It's available at the Chula Vista Library. First, some facts. 93% of our time is spent inside or in vehicles. Also, people experience greater joy in natural settings than in urban settings. Also, avoiding nature causes people to underestimate its pleasurable benefits. People have habitat preferences. Here are some examples. People enjoy going to parks. Kids like tree houses. Others like going to the beach or hiking on trails. Habitat preferences include making our homes and yards a certain way. All of these preferences are remarkably consistent across cultures and different eras. At the same time, we're increasingly burdened by chronic ailments made worse by time indoors, from myopia and vitamin D deficiency, and for some, obesity, depression, loneliness, and anxiety. In today's world, with the pressures of the pandemic coinciding with online internet activity, many experts argue we've grown more irritable, less sociable, and more distracted. Well, nature can help alleviate things that ail us. The American Psychological Association studies show that nature provides a feeling of tranquility, birdsong actually reduces stress, and water sounds can improve positive emotions. So where does this leave us? Next slide, please. Create a naturescape. Plan and modify your yard, and you can have an extension of your home to live outdoors and enjoy what you have created. Create a place that will have beneficial habitat for wildlife, and you can also conserve water and really enjoy the greenery of your own yard. Next slide, please. So the 5 steps of natural yard care. I'm going to go over these in the following slides. And also, these are very covered in great detail at the Naturescape website. The last slide of this presentation will have that website. Next slide, please. 1, building healthy living soils. It takes compost, compost, compost. Compost is an organic matter that's decayed yard waste, as far as like leaves, grasses, and such, as well as if you do it in the backyard, kitchen waste. Catherine's presentation will show you how to do it later in the show here. So compost provides nutrients for the soil. It creates air for the soil and also creates space for water for your plants to thrive. It'll help sandy soils hold nutrients and hold water. It'll help loosen clay soils and can also be used as mulch too to cover bare areas in your yard. Next slide, please. Two, plant right for your site. The 2 most important things are to determine the microclimates in your yard. Get to know your yard. You need to know the sunny or shady areas. You need to know the dry or damp areas. And also, it's very important to plant plants with similar needs. Full sun, partial sun, shade only. Don't mix them up. Do them separately. And then also, this way you'll have success. If you intermix them, they have different water needs, you're going to have some failures. Also, select climate appropriate, drought tolerant plants. These can be native, or these can be from Mediterranean climate zones in different parts of the world, as well as other plants from the West that are going to do well in Chula Vista. Next slide, please. Here are some Mediterranean climates. These are the areas of the world. Obviously here, California and Baja, Mediterranean, and then Chile and Western Cape of South Africa, and Southwest and South Australia. Next slide, please. As you can see, these 4 areas besides our area, you can see the plants are very similar. So what that means is these plants will do well here in our Mediterranean climate. Of course, you want to use natives as well because they're going to definitely thrive. But you're not pinned down to that. You can select plants from these Mediterranean areas as well for your naturescape. Next slide, please. 3, water smart irrigation. Can't say enough about irrigation. We're heading into our 2nd year of a drought too. So make every drop count. And I don't know if you know, but for most homes, 60% of the water is used to irrigate plants outside. Use efficient watering techniques. For example, automatic sprinkler systems, soaker hoses, as well as drip systems, and also efficient sprinkler heads and such. A lot of rebates at each of the water districts that serve Chula Vista. Check it out. Also, if you're going to water by hand, which can be very good because you can check out the plants as you're doing it, see how well they're doing. If you use a hose, make sure it has a nozzle you can shut off, or use a watering can. It's an easy way to do it too. And also, as far as watering, soil can only accept and absorb water at a certain rate. So you have to let it soak in, come back, hit it again. Irrigate long enough to wet the entire root zone. And also, best to water before sunrise or after sunset or before work, after work. During that time frame, so there's very, very little evaporation, if any. Ideally, you want to maybe take out some of your lawn areas and create more space for a naturescape. Next slide, please. 4, toxic pest control. I can't say enough about compost because when you build those healthy soils, the organisms in the soil will help protect plants from disease. Avoid using chemical pesticides and herbicides, and select plants that are beneficial for the good bugs. About 90% of the bugs in your yard are the good bugs. And also consider pest repelling plants, and you can make your own natural sprays as well. And that information about that is located on the Naturescape website and some links. You can find those recipes. Next slide, please. Lawn care, natural lawn care, grass cycling. I don't know if you know, but the maintenance needs for lawns are often the highest and they take the most water too. They also require proper nutrients and the right amount of water. A lot of people overwater their lawns. So what's grass cycling? It's when you leave the nitrogen-rich clippings on the lawn. So don't use the bagger, just mow and leave the clippings, go over the clippings a couple of times, chop them up a little better, and that'll be free fertilizer for your lawn. You can see in this photo, they're brown. Those ones have been there about 4 or 5 days, but they didn't mow over those. So I recommend you mow over them again. Aerate a couple times a year. You'll increase water penetration. Top your lawns with compost instead of chemical fertilizers. And unfortunately, the best way to get rid of weeds is to just pull them. Don't use the weed and feed products because if there's any runoff, those chemicals are going to go into the street and into the storm drains in the bay and in the ocean. Next slide, please. So these are some naturescapes here in Chula Vista. On the top left, that's a native yard in Rancho del Rey, and you can see it has more of a rustic, wild look, and which is great. I love it myself. The bottom 2 are more manicured, drought-tolerant naturescapes, and you can see the use of compost in there as well, and also a bird bath as well to help attract birds. And on the upper right, that's a naturescape that is applying in-ground plants as well as potted plants. So that's another way to go. And potted plants are great because you can move them around. They're not tied to one location. Next slide, please. As I was mentioning, you really want to create an ideal situation where you can extend your living space. And here's some great examples of that. Enjoy the greenery, listen to the birds, put out bird feeders, and such. Also create water sources for birds. You can, in the right top corner, you see that picture. There's a fountain that'll help attract birds. I highly recommend looking into getting a solar powered fountain. That way you don't have to deal with, electricity and permits and all that kind of stuff to have that thing run. So that's a good way to go. And you can also put just dishes of water in the ground to attract wildlife as well. Next slide, please. I don't know if you know this, but nearly 600 homes in Chula Vista have been certified wildlife habitats by the National Wildlife Federation. So once you get your naturescape, pretty dialed in, and you follow the 4 criteria here, you can be eligible for a certified wildlife habitat. And I can help you with that. I can guide you with that. That's one of the things I'll gladly do for you and such, give you the parameters and what to do. Next slide, please. Well, there it is. There's the Naturescape website right at the top. You might want to snap a picture of it if you want to look at it tonight. And also at the website, you'll find all kinds of information about sustainable landscapes, plants, the WUCAL site there in blue. That website, you're going to find out with the size the plants will grow, their sun and water needs. And it's very important to find that out because you don't want to put something in a bad location. I mean, sorry later. And also there's other information there and plenty of other links. So if you have any questions about Naturescape or certified wildlife habitat, give me a call or send me an email. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Bob. Man, some of those yards looked pretty amazing. So next up, we're going to have a small advertisement here about a bike event, and we do have our manager of the conservation department here in the city of Chula Vista, Colleen Wisniewski, here to talk about that.
Thanks, Vic. Well, you might be familiar with Bike to Work Day. This year, there's something new happening. SANDAG, or the San Diego Association of Governments, is hosting a full week of bicycle fun for commuters of all types. Take part by taking the pledge, completing the challenges, and tuning into a virtual class. Events will run May 16th through 22nd. And if you take the pledge before April 30th, you'll be entered into a drawing to win a new bike valued at $500, courtesy of the San Diego Bicycle Club. There are lots of prizes and lots of events, so I recommend checking out the website. Registered participants are eligible for a free SANDAG Bike Anywhere t-shirt with pickup locations in Chula Vista. So again, check the website for all the details at icommutesd.com. That's icommutesd.com. It's at the bottom there of your screen. And again, this will be available later as well if you want to click on this live link from the slides after the event. Back to you, Vic.
Thank you, Colleen. So at this next point, we're going into our first live stream. So we will have also my colleague, Barbara Lochi, out at her home in Potrero, California. And she is an avid honeybee producer. So she does do beekeeping at home, and she is here to talk to you about, what the benefits are, the gear and equipment, safety, seasons, and, the different seasons and what you're going to need in those different seasons. So if we're ready, Yasmin, let's go out to Barbara. And just bear with us with these live streams.
Yeah, we are listening to you.
Okay.
Hi. Can you guys see me? Oh, there you are. Hi, happy Earth Day to everybody. So my house today, and I am right next to my little apiary here. I just have one disclaimer. I am a beginner. I just started beekeeping last year, and so far it's been a very good experience. And I'm happy to be here, not as a city employee necessarily. This is something I do on the side, so it's a hobby for me right now. So I wanted to talk to you, first of all, give you some information about beekeeping, where to start if you want to start. If you live in the San Diego County, you have a lot of space in your yard, you should be able to beekeep easily. The county's regulation is to be 600 feet from a road or from your neighbor's house. And also most cities have the same type of regulation. So I suggest you with your city ordinances, as well as with your HOA, if you're part of an HOA, before you start. Also, make sure you're not allergic. One of the major things that you want to start is to actually get yourself somebody that already knows how to keep and that can mentor you at least for the first year or the first couple of years. It is very important to do so because we can make mistakes and we can be doing things that are unsafe for ourselves and also for the bees. So one of the best resources is the San Diego Beekeeping Society. I don't know if maybe Yasmin can put the link up on the comment and Q&A section. But San Diego Beekeeping Society has also a Facebook group that you can join and just ask questions, and people are super nice and very happy to help all the time, giving advice and even coming to your house if you need help. So that said, this is what you need to start at your house. You're gonna need an apiary. I started with a very small one. I added a second box and I'm getting ready to add a third on top. You need a roof for your bees to protect them. And then, of course, there is a base which is removable. It's their entrance. And so I can make it bigger or smaller if I want to. So you need, yeah, it gets very hot over the summertime. So I use a piece of cardboard on top to shade it a little bit. You can also put it under a tree. And during winter time, I put a tarp over them so that to make sure no rain or water goes inside. And I also tilt it forward so that definitely water will not go inside their entrance. Today they're super mellow because of the weather, so they're all inside, keeping themselves warm. You will probably see a few coming in and out, but not very many. Then what you're gonna need is a smoker. Mine just went off, of course. The hardest thing to do is to keep this going. You need a smoker because it distracts the bees. They think there is a fire, so they're not concentrating on you as much as they are to the smoke. And so, and especially when you blow it on them, they kind of like disperse and fly away. And then you're gonna need this tool. I'm not sure what it's called. I call it a lever, but you need this to kind of unstick the boxes and also inside to separate the frames and lift them because it can get very sticky with the wax and the honey in there. And then I feed them during winter time. I feed them protein patties during the winter months. And then I give them also sugar water. So it's called syrup, just to keep them going when there are no flowers around. As far as safety goes, you want to wear gloves. Like I said, you want to make sure you're not allergic. If you are, you should have your medication with you. There are some very allergic beekeepers that actually keep on beekeeping. They're brave. So the boots to cover your feet as well. And then to keep the bees safe, like I said, you want to protect them from weather, but you also want to protect them from other issues that may arise, like the parasite varroa, which is very deadly to the bees, and it is actually destroying colonies all over the world. So we usually treat them after the honey harvest, which I'll talk about in a second. And then what else? So for as far as safety goes, you also want to make sure you don't use pesticides like the glyphosates, for example, and just use organic pesticides. And also, if you are in a city environment, maybe you can talk to your neighbors and let them know. You can exchange a jar of honey a year or something to make sure that they collaborate with you. And so as far as the bees go, I was supposed to open the hive, but the weather is not very nice and it's going to disrupt them. So because they need to stay warm inside. So I brought a frame just to show you what goes inside these boxes. So this is a frame, and this is plastic. Some people use just wires and let the bees do their work. And it's usually smeared with wax, so they already know that this is for them and this is something that they're going to work on. And it has hexagonal little shapes in there. So it's ready for them to build their cells. And so the frames go inside here. And this is where everything, all the magic happens. So they bring the pollen, they build their wax cells, they raise the babies. The queen is always there inside laying eggs constantly. And then the workers bring the pollen, they make the honey, they feed the babies, and then we can harvest honey. And usually we want to harvest the honey at the end of summertime. And we want to take it from them if we have 3 of these boxes. So if we have 3 boxes, we can harvest the honey from the top box. And then we leave the rest for the rest of the winter, because they also need to eat as well the whole time. That's how it's done. We don't want. I stole 1 frame from them last year because I was so excited, and then I fed them, of course, with the patties and the sugar water. But I will not do that this year. I'm gonna make sure to have a 3rd box so we can share. As far as the season go, during summertime they work so hard. Spring and summer, they work hard all the time, and they also impollinate your flowers, impollinate your fruit trees if you have fruit trees, and your veggie garden. So last year I didn't have to buy any vegetables. I had my own, and the bees were working hard. My garden is right behind them, and so it was perfect. And as far as the seasons, also, like I said, you want to harvest your honey towards the end of July or August, and then you leave them alone, and you feed them, and you just make sure everything is going okay, and that queen is still healthy and they are healthy. You do the varroa treatment after you have, and then in springtime the cycle begins again. They produce more bees, so they kind of wake up and just go to work, and the cycle starts all over again. So do you guys have any questions?
Hi, Barbara. We actually do have 2 questions that have come in. And just so everybody knows, feel free to put the question on the right side there in the Q&A. We will answer 2 questions. Any unanswered questions, we'll definitely follow up with you after the event. So the first question, Barbara, do you feel that your bees are getting to know you better? Do they recognize your scent and act less aggressively around you?
That's a $1 million question. They have been a little mean to me lately, and so we actually had to kill the queen because it was her fault, and we have replaced her with a nicer queen. But yes, they do recognize me, but like I said, sometimes they're not very happy with me and they sting me. But otherwise, it's a very loving relationship.
That's great. Thank you. And it's unfortunate we didn't get to see the bees, but we also, don't want to disrupt them. So second question, what is the temperature inside the box during the summer weather, and what is the temperature in the winter months?
It can get up to 90 degrees or even 95, and they actually like the warmth. Here in Potrero, it gets really hot. But what they do is in fact, you need to make sure you have a source of water, because what they do is they go and pick up the water, they bring it back to the apiary, to the hive, and with their wings, use that water that they picked up to kind of like ventilate and fan inside the hive. So they do everything themselves. They take care of everything inside the hive. If an insect or one of them dies inside, the others will take it out, and they do the cleanup, and they regulate their own temperature. In winter, it can get really cold here. I was very worried when it was hailing a couple of months ago, and I didn't see any of them in the entrance, and I was worried. And so I came with a flashlight, I checked inside, and they were all grouped in the middle of the hive. So they know what to do. We just have to make sure that we keep them safe and tilted forward.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Barbara, for braving the bees. We did see some buzzing around you. And we're going to go ahead and move on to our next segment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, that takes us into our first Earth Day trivia question. And so, what happens to plastic waste? So this is plastic waste after it's gone somewhere. Trash, the floor, the recycle bin. So A, is it a biodegradable material? Is it eventually disintegrates? It never fully goes away. It just breaks down into little pieces. C, there is no such thing as plastic waste. All plastic is recycled. D, it is dumped in the ocean for fish to eat. So if you guys want, just go ahead and let me know in the Q&A box there if you want to take a guess at it. Go ahead. I'll give you a few seconds to do that, and then I'll reveal the answer. All right, go ahead and reveal the answer, Yasmin. It's actually B. It never fully goes away. It just breaks down into little pieces. So, and it's kind of a scary thought because if it does end up in the oceans, the waterways, it can break down into little particles, smaller than your pinky nail. And we call those, they're termed microplastics. So, not a good thing. If you do have plastics that and they are recyclable, please recycle them, put them in the right bin. So thank you so much, Yasmin, and we're going to go ahead and jump right into our next presentation. So this presentation is going to be given by our own Corey Downs, Sustainability Specialist here in the Office of Sustainability, and he will be giving you a talk on home energy efficiency.
Hello, and thank you all very much for attending the event today, online event at home. I'll be talking, speaking of at home and the reason that we're at home, we've been spending a lot more time at home. And so I'll be talking about how to make the home more energy efficient, comfortable, and reduce the bills at the same time. Next slide. This is a slide that we have that is an overview of energy efficiency. And it starts with 5 steps to a net zero energy home. Don't worry if you can't see all the details in the slide. You can download, you'll be able to download a link, a presentation with this link in it afterwards. It starts with taking simple actions like monitoring your energy use through SDG&E's account tool or special energy management tools that manage or that record energy uses per appliance. A lot of people don't know, but through SDG&E's account, there's actually 15-minute detailed information of how your home uses energy throughout the day. So with doing a little bit of detective work and looking at how you use energy, you can really try to focus in on what are the big energy users in your home. After you know kind of some of that information, you can start by being extra energy conscious around the home. These are the easy actions that don't necessarily cost additional money: turning off appliances, eliminating vampire appliances that use energy in their off mode, making sure we're using energy or trying to reduce energy usage in the early afternoon 4 to 9 period when the grid has the least amount of renewable energy in it. And after we make this simple, starting to go up the list a little bit is making improvements with small items like LED lights or low flow fixtures. As you save hot water in your home, you also save the energy to heat that water. And again, saving water is also important, as it looks like some counties in California have already entered a drought again. And once you make these smaller improvements, you'll want to work up to the larger air sealing, adding insulation, duct sealing in the home, really trying to make sure that it has a tight envelope so that when you do purchase larger energy efficient appliances like a heater, air conditioner, or a water, that you know that you're spending the least amount of energy and cost to heat and cool your home. If you purchase an energy efficient air conditioner, but the home's not very well insulated or not air sealed, that air conditioner is still going to work really hard and use a lot of energy. The fifth step is adding renewable energy. Once you've made your home more energy efficient, you can add that on-site in local clean production and also possibly add a battery storage to take advantage of excess energy during the day and help power your home in the late evening times. Like I said, when traditionally the grid has the least amount of renewable energy on it. And then to reach our long-term goal, the last step that we added is the 6 steps of decarbonizing or replace fossil fuels like natural gas with a cleaner source of fuel. Right now, that's probably going to be electricity because we know the electric grid is using a lot of renewable energies and on a path to use even more renewable energy. But in the future, there might be opportunities to use carbon-free renewable natural gas or hydrogen. So we'll really have to see what the future holds. These improvements can have multiple benefits aside from making your home more energy efficient and just reducing bills. They can make homes more comfortable, healthy, resilient to extreme weather, and reduce air pollution for the community and greenhouse gas emissions for the community. As well as creating local jobs for the community too. So there's a lot of win-win opportunities for individuals and the community. Next slide. One way that the city is looking to increase energy efficiency in Chula Vista is through a recently adopted code called the Existing Home Sustainability Ordinance. This home requires homes built before 2006 to include additional energy efficiency items when they're making additions or structural remodels. So these are generally larger projects and based on the age of the home as well as the location, they'll either install between 2 or 4 of the energy efficiency items that are included on the right hand there. A number of the items that I mentioned before, from low-cost items like LED water or LED lighting and the water heating, all the way up to some of the larger, energy-efficient appliances. And if you think that you might be doing an addition or a structural remodel, you can learn more about the ordinance on the website there. And like I said, you'll be able to download the presentation to use that link as well. Next slide. Because a lot of homes in Chula Vista have already taken similar measures that were required under the ordinance, there is a number of exemptions if the home has already done similar measures, if it's fully solar powered, so it's all electric home that uses solar energy, or if there's low income residents, or just infeasible, not cost effective projects because of the unique considerations of the home. And then the last 2 exemptions are if it's an accessory dwelling unit, or if it's a repair and not really changing anything structurally. We don't want to hold up those types of projects. Next slide. The good news is that there's lots of resources to help with a lot of these energy efficiency improvements, from weatherization resources through MAC and SDG&E. There's some really great rebates right now from SDG&E as well, especially for heat pump water heaters. If you're contemplating making that conversion, there's a great rebate right now on SDG&E's website, and you'll be able to click on the link there when you download the presentation to find it, or just search SDG&E rebates. And then finally, Grid Alternatives provides some really great solar support assistance for low-income Chula Vista and San Diego residents. So another great way to lower the bill is to add a solar panel system and produce your own energy. Next slide. Another tool that you can check out from the library is called the Sustainable Home Energy Toolkit. It's a toolkit that you can check out at no cost from the Chula Vista Library, just like a book. It contains a number of really great tools. You can use the kilowatt meter to monitor energy usage of appliances around the home, thermal infrared camera to identify if you need more air sealing or insulation, a natural gas detector in case any of your appliances might have a leak, and then also some really great devices that you get to keep, like the LED light bulb, weather stripping, and gasket for your outlets to help make them more weatherization. So again, all these tools you can check out at no cost, and you can learn more and check them out on the website at the bottom of the slide right here. Next slide. The toolkit doesn't only come with great tools, it also has a really helpful home toolkit user guide. So there's different sections in the guide to show you how to use all the energy saving tools, the water tools, additional recycling and reducing waste tips, how to track your home energy consumption to make sure that you're getting the most out of the energy that you're doing and the projects that you're installing, and some other really great helpful tips on how to make your homes more sustainable. Like I said, that all comes from the library through a kit. Next slide. The last tool that I'll talk about today is the Chula Vista Climate Action Challenge. This is a website that you can sign up for through the Clean page, and there's a link at the end. And it allows you to create an account and then answer a few basic questions and find out what your carbon footprint is. Similar to tracking your energy consumption, finding out what your carbon footprint is and what activities in your life produce the most amount of carbon is a really important first step to addressing the carbon footprint and finding out where you want to invest your time and resources to finding low carbon solutions. There's many actions that are included in the challenge, and over 100 actions and ways to reduce carbon emissions, and lots of step-by-step helpful tips and information and resources. And then as you complete the actions and get points, you can kind of step up the challenge levels there and see how green you can get, and let others in the challenge see how green you are on your journey as well. Next slide. And additionally, it's also really important that it's not just you in this challenge. There's a lot of community building aspects in the Climate Action Challenge. You can create community groups and then invite your friends, family, and neighbors to join you in your path for reducing carbon emissions. Lots of messaging. If you sign up and say, hey, I'd like to learn more about biking around Chula Vista, anytime someone else makes a comment on that action, it will kind of populate on your page, and you'll be able to see what activities around biking or other actions or other members are taking. And then finally, there's a leaderboard. So you get to see kind of who else in the community is taking action, reach out to them and learn from their experience, or just compliment them and say what a great job they're doing. You can sign up for the challenge on the chulavista.gov/clean website. And it has a lot of other really great and important information there as well. Next slide. So that's all for my presentation. As I mentioned, you can sign up for the challenge on the Clean website or by scanning the QR code on the page right there. Thank you much.
Thank you, Corey. And we do have one question that came in, if you want to just stay on for one couple seconds here. So Corey, any incentives available for taking steps to electrify our 2004 home, switching out gas stove for conduction, or gas dryer for electric heat pump?
Unfortunately, there are no rebates for stoves or gas dryer heat pumps yet. Although there is some really great products out there, and a lot of people might not think of electric dryer as being energy efficient appliances, but through the heat pump technology, they can be really energy efficient and actually more gentle on your clothes. So there's definitely some win-win opportunities. The only resource for the cooktops that I'll recommend is there is a new effort led by the San Diego Green Building Council, and they have what's called a cooktop lender program. And they'll be actually there in our next Clean newsletter, a little plug for the Clean newsletter. We'll be doing a write-up on some of their ability to, you can sign up and check out a induction cooktop so that you can try it at home, make sure that you like the technology, see how your pans work with it before you make the investment of replacing your stove with an inductive heat pump. and that is through the San Diego Green Building Council. And I'll include some information in the presentation about that after the fact, and you can download it, so it'll be in there as well.
All right, thank you so much, Corey. All right, moving on. So we are going to be going into a presentation from Sweetwater Authority, and Mr. Doug Roberts will be giving you a nice little presentation with some resources here.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, and special thanks to the city of Chula Vista for inviting us to speak at this event. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. So we wanted to just help celebrate Earth Day with getting folks to realize and to just reflect on water. It's something that's in your home. You may not think about it as often, but it's the lifeblood to our existence, basically. It's a very precious resource, and we need to learn how to not necessarily, we want to conserve it, but we also want to focus on using it more efficiently. Sweetwater Authority treats and distributes safe and reliable water through its pipelines. Just a little bit of a background. We have just right around 200,000 customers, including National City, the western parts of Chula Vista and Bonita. We do share Chula Vista with Otay Water District out to the east. And a lot of the work goes into making sure that when you turn on your tap, there's always safe and reliable water there. A lot of work going on behind the scenes. Next slide, please. So again, as I mentioned, it's a very precious resource. We want you to use it wisely. We understand that people need to use water for their landscapes, for their health and safety. They get lots of enjoyment, as Bob mentioned earlier, in the naturescape, lots of relaxation. So we just want to be sure when you do use your water that you use it in the most efficient manner possible. We have some rebates available to our customers to help in maybe the inside of your home, such as high efficiency clothes washers. We have irrigation devices. There's leak detection. So we'll go ahead and get into that on the next slide. So a couple of devices that I kind of want to highlight for Earth Day as far as going along with the theme of keeping that precious resource and using it efficiently. Couple ones we want to highlight here are the leak detector. And these are devices that customers can install themselves or have a professional install. They range in anywhere from just about $200 all the way up to $700 or $800, depending on the extent you want to get involved with it. Most of our customers have used the Flume device, which I have shown in the picture here. It's the easiest to install. It doesn't require a plumber or anybody. It just attaches right to the side of your meter. It sends data right to your smartphone, and you can get real-time readouts of your water usage. So it notifies you if you have a leak, or if you have your irrigations running and you didn't know it was going to run today because you thought maybe it was going to rain. It's a reminder. Again, there's about 5 different companies that we have vetted that we provide a rebate. Our rebate is $100. So if you went with the Flume, it would basically cost you $200, and then you would get a $100 rebate. That rebate is going to be around for a while. Again, Sweetwater Authority would like to offer that to our customers. And again, there's several different models to choose from. You can also find additional rebates at SoCalWaterSmart.com. The second one I want to talk to you about is the Fix-A-Leak application that we have. In March, the EPA launches the nationwide EPA Fix-A-Leak Week program. At Sweetwater Authority, we decided that a week is not a long enough time to ramp up the education and information that get it out to our customers. So we extended it for the whole month of March. But talking with our general manager and our board, they have decided for this year, we're going to extend it into the end of our fiscal year, which is June 30th. So let's say you have a leak on a potable water line, something that uses potable water. Maybe your line coming in from your meter maybe your irrigation, your laundry sink, your bathroom sink is leaking, you can have that leak addressed and repaired, and Sweetwater Authority will honor that with a $75 bill credit. You just fill out the application, send in your receipt to Sweetwater Authority, and they will credit your account up to $75. So that's a really good incentive. We've had several people take advantage of that, and we're just hoping that by us extending that and participating in this Earth Day, we'll also get some more participation. Next slide, please. And the last one that I would like to speak about a little bit kind of dovetails into what Bob was talking about earlier in the NatureScape program. Right now, there is a landscape transformation rebate, and you can get up to $3 per square foot of turf removed. You get $2 from the Metropolitan Water District, and then you get an additional $1 from the San Diego County Water Authority, so a total of $3. I will let you know when you do go onto the website of SoCalWaterSmart.com to apply for your rebate. Initially, it's only going to show up as the $3. As the $2. But as you type in your information and it recognizes you're within the San Diego County Water Authority region, it will add that additional $1 to your rebate. And it's up to 5,000 square feet of turf removed, front or backyard. There are several steps that they want you to go through. They're trying to move away just from taking out your turf and placing rock and calling it good. They want these landscapes to be very aesthetically pleasing, as you can see here. This was one of our landscape contest entries, one of our winners. They did an excellent job of taking out their turf, incorporating all the things that they want you to do in the NatureScape program. And I just wanted to give a real quick down and dirty of our rebates, the ones we're highlighting. If you have any questions on these slides or rebate concerns, or just want to figure out how to use more water efficiently, and or just have general questions on conservation, please feel free to reach out to me, and you can call Sweetwater Authority's main number and ask for the conservation person or Doug Roberts, and I'd be happy to assist you. I believe that's my last slide.
All right, thank you so much, Doug, for being here and presenting those awesome resources to the community. Very cool. So we are moving into our second live stream here, and it will be coming live from the Living Coast Discovery Center. And we have Catherine Matthews, our sustainability specialist for the Living Coast Discovery Center. And she's here to present to you guys. Catherine?
Thank you, Victor. Happy Earth Day, everybody. My name is Catherine. I'm the Sustainability Manager at the Living Coast Discovery Center. We are a nonprofit zoo and aquarium located right here in Chula Vista on the San Diego Bay Wildlife Refuge. We will be opening to the public starting Saturday, May 1st, and we will be open on Saturdays and Sundays. So come on down and visit the compost garden. We'll be doing our workshops at 2 p.m. on Sundays. But did you know that you can use food scraps to make healthy soil? Instead of throwing away these resources, we're going to compost them instead and utilize the nutrients in our gardens and backyards. It's as easy as taking food, putting it into a pile to create healthy soil, just like this. Today, I'll be going over the basics of composting and showcase one of our hot compost piles. We'll even take a look at one of our worm beds. On the ground, or you live in an apartment, there is scraps. Composting is a way to speed up nature's decomposition process. Think of it as recycling nutrients. When the parameters are bad, setting is because organics in the landfill pose a problem. When methane into our atmosphere, which traps heat and causes global climate change. If we compost our organics instead, we'll create a nutrient-rich humus or organic since you've been home during this pandemic. Maybe you've even started to grow some vegetables or an herb garden. Adding what's great about compost is it slowly releases nutrients into the soil over time, break up tough soils, and acts like a sponge to help retain more moisture in an area that plants can easily take up. It also helps fight off pests and disease. In order to compost, we rely on decomposers called the FBI. This stands for fungi, bacteria, and invertebrates. We can keep these FBI happy by cleaning our compost piles and follow our compost recipe here. We call them the greens, browns, and blues of the compost pile. Now, the greens are going to be things like nitrogen-rich products. Think of an item if it was left in a plastic bag or sealed container for a couple days' time. The material inside is starting to get moldy. It's probably a little bit wet in that container. Grass and other trimmings from the yard. You can also incorporate manure that comes from herbivores. We just want to keep out cat and dog feces. We also want to minimize meat and dairy products, as well as fats, oils, and grease. A little bit every once in a while won't hurt a compost pile, but in a backyard setting, we don't want to attract rodents and other critters. So the compost pile is about 50% greens or nitrogen-rich products, and then it's about 50% browns or carbon-rich products. These stay pretty fresh if they've been left in a bag or container for a couple days' time. So if you have dried leaves, twigs, mulch, any ash or sawdust from wood, egg cartons, shredded paper, newspaper, toilet paper rolls, napkins, all of these things that we have in our home can be added to a compost pile and used to break down into nutrient-rich soil. After you have your greens and browns thoroughly mixed, you want to make sure that you have enough air and water. So your compost should feel like a wrung out sponge. There shouldn't be too much water coming from your hand, but it should stay in a nice clump. And we turn the compost piles and aerate it for the bacteria to thrive. And we're going to take a look at one of our hot compost piles now and see how the process looks after a few months' time. So I've turned a good portion of this compost pile already. You can see inside here we have a good mix. We have mostly browns on the top. So you can see things like straw, shredded paper, some leaves. And it's about time for me to add some food scraps. So I turn a quarter of the pile at a time, and then I add my nitrogen product. You can see here I have some egg carton, oranges, lots and lots of oranges today. But this, I would say, would probably be the most stinky part of compost if you let your greens sit in a container for a week or two. But your compost pile itself should not be that stinky. If you start to notice foul odors like ammonia or like a rotten egg smell, one of your parameters is out of whack in the pile. And most of the time it's either you wet your pile down too much or you put too much nitrogen or greens. So it's easy to fix a stinky compost pile. So if you started one at home during this pandemic and you've had that issue, try turning your compost pile like this and add more browns in. But it's just very important to aerate a pile. Now I do this every week or so. I'll turn the compost pile and add new ingredients. But the last thing that you should always remember to do whenever you add anything to a compost pile is add a dry layer of brown to the top. This is how I keep away flies. I keep moisture within the pile, and I don't smell any rotting food. If you want to check out our virtual workshops to learn more, We have those on Sundays. You can check out thelivingcoast.org to sign up and register. We're now going to take a look at one of our methods that we can use if we live in an apartment or we just don't have that many food scraps. Compost bin. In here, we use bread wigglers to break down our food scraps. Let's see. Bread wigglers have voracious appetites. They eat about half of their body weight every day. Here we go. And they reproduce pretty quickly as long as you're feeding them on a regular basis. Now, these red wiggler worms thrive in an environment of about 60 to 80 degrees. So it's best to place and somewhere that's nice and dark. There's no turning required for this composting method. It's a cool form of composting. So sometimes I'll notice some sprouts like squash or tomato that come from the worm bin. I avoid putting large amounts of citrus, spicy foods, and onions because the worms don't like to eat that as much. But all of this brown stuff here is worm castings, which is a fancy word for worm poop. And this is a very high nutrient-rich compost. So a little bit of this will go a long way in your gardens. You can leave this underneath your sink, in your garage, in your washroom, on your back patio as long as there's shade. But you can compost virtually anywhere with these lovely worms. All right. So the Living Coast Discovery Center partners with the City of Chula Vista to provide education to their residents on how to divert their food waste from the landfill. Residents can purchase discounted compost bins by attending one of either my on-site or virtual workshops, and check out our website to register for that. If you're ready to take your composting knowledge to the next level, we also host the Chula Vista Master Composter Training Course twice a year. And this is a free 7-week course with a little bit more hands-on and in-depth learning components to it. So you can join the Master Composter interest list on the city's website. And remember, compost will happen. So whether you have the time and ability to put a lot of work into your compost pile, or you only have a little bit of time every week, the composting process will happen. Do your part to protect our earth. And thank you so much for joining me. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Catherine. And just so you know, we did have some connection issues towards the beginning. So it did get choppy and then a little bit after that. So I think what we can do is maybe get a presentation of this and then we'll get it out to everybody just so that you can get all of the information fully from Catherine. All right, but I do have a question actually here. So how do you separate worms from the compost?
That's a good question. So when you are harvesting your castings from your bin, what I tend to do, it's a little preparation. I'll start feeding on one side of the bin for a couple weeks so they migrate to one side of the bin and leave their castings on the other side. I'll then take a tarp or cardboard and scoop up those castings and make little piles on my table, and I'll leave that out in the sun for about 30 minutes or so. Once the worms make their way to the bottom of the pile, I simply scoop up the top. I run it through a sifter one last time to make sure I don't have any more worms, and that's it. So it's a little bit more time-consuming process to separate the worms from their castings, but you have a higher nutrient-rich compost, so you don't need as much.
Very good. Thank you. Actually, we do have another question. Just one last question. Where do you get the worms from?
Where do I get the worms? There are a few places you can get them in San Diego. You can check out your local nursery and call to see if they have them. I go to City Farmers Nursery off Home Avenue. That's where I purchase my red wigglers.
Great. Thank you, Catherine, for doing this live stream with us. We really appreciate it. All righty. We're going to go ahead and move into our next segment here. And so Yasmin's going to be pulling up the next presentation. So this next presentation will be given by somebody that has over 20 years in recycling experience. Actually, I would say 25 years in recycling experience. I've worked with her for a long time. This is Marty Solomon, sustainability specialist here at the City of Chula Vista with Astor Recycler.
Thank you very much, Vic. I'm going to give everybody today some quick tips on to reduce, reuse, recycle, and to head on to the path to zero waste. Next slide, please. The 3 R's. Well, in my day, it was reading, writing, and arithmetic, but today it's more reduce, reuse, and recycle. Reduce, create less disposables that you have to get rid of to begin with. Reuse, instead of getting rid of something altogether, find a new use for it. And then when all else fails, recycle everything possible so that you can turn it into new products. Next slide, please. Well, we want to make sure that you know what you can recycle in your curbside container. Flattened cardboard, you want to flatten it so it takes up less space. Paper, cans, aluminum cans, bimetal cans, plastic bottles and jugs, and then glass bottles. Now, glass is tricky. You only want to put glass in your recycling container that had something to eat or something to drink in it. And over on the right side of this slide, there's some things that you do not want to put in your recycling container: plastic bags, soiled paper, food, electronics, yard waste, items such as that. Next slide, please. Now, we do have some hard to dispose of items. Cooking oil is a biggie. You do not want to pour it down the drain or the sink, and you don't want to pour it down the toilet. If you live in a single family home and you have cart service, you can actually call Republic Services 2 days before your collection day, and they will be happy to pick it up at the curbside for you, as long as you have it in its original container. That way you can seal it tight and there's no danger of leaking. Or if you'd rather, you can take it to our household hazardous waste facility on Maxwell Road. Next slide, please. There's a couple things I need everybody to remember. You want to keep things empty, clean, and dry. So if you have a can with tomato sauce in it, just make sure you scrape out all the sauce. I mean, after all, you don't want to have your enchilada sauceless, so make sure you get all of the tomato sauce out. Or if you have if you have a water bottle or soda bottle and you haven't finished it, just dump it out in the sink and then put your container into the recycling bin. You don't need to bag your recyclables. You just want to put them in your cart loose. And certain things we call tanglers, and that would be hoses, rope, wire hangers, because they get caught up in the equipment at the materials recovery facility, which slows down the recycling process, because then they have to turn off their equipment, take the items off of the rollers and things like that, and it just slows down the whole process. And household hazardous waste products, you don't ever want to throw them away. You want to take them to the city's household hazardous waste facility located at 1800 Maxwell Road. Our facility is open Wednesdays and Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And for all you Chula Vista residents, we're very proud to say our facility is the only facility in the county open 2 days a week. Next slide, please. Another issue, batteries and electronics. They are definitely hard to dispose of. You don't want to put them in your recycling container because they can create fire hazards at the landfill, in the trash trucks, and even at the recycling facility. And they do contaminate the recyclables. Best bet is to, again, you can take them to the city's household hazardous waste facility on Maxwell Road. Next slide, please. Now, let's take the guesswork out of everything. You have something in your hand and you're like, do I put it in the trash? Do I put it in the recycle? The best thing is to not have to dispose of it at all. On the left side, you see the example of the plastic water bottle. Well, we all know that's recyclable, but rather than use a plastic water bottle, why not use a reusable container for your water? Then you get many more uses out of that, and you don't have to worry about disposing of anything. On the right-hand side of the slide, you see plastic bags. versus a reusable bag. Obviously, a reusable bag is much more preferable because you get multiple uses out of a reusable bag, and typically the grocery store plastic bags are good for maybe 1 or 2 uses at the most. Next slide, please. We're going to play a game now. Let's see how good you are. Next slide, please. Plastic straws. Do you think they're recyclable or you think they're trash? Real quick in the Q&A, put if you think you know the answer, put R or T. We're going to give you about 5 seconds. All right, Yasmin, reveal the answer. Plastic straws are indeed recyclable. They are accepted at our materials recovery facility. So you can put those in your recycling container. Next slide, please. Paper plates, cups, and bowls. What do you think? R or T, recyclable or trash? All right, Yasmin, let's give them the correct answer. They indeed are trash, and you would not want to put them in your recycling container. You need to put them in your trash cart. Next slide. We all get a Starbucks, a Big Gulp, or a McCafe drink every now and then. So clear plastic cups, what do you think? Recyclable or trash? Yasmin, let's tell them the right answer. They indeed are recyclable and are accepted by the materials recovery facility that the city of Chula Vista uses. Next slide, please. Styrofoam containers such as and packing peanuts, so plates, bowls, trays, things like that. Recyclable or trash? Yasmin, let's tell them. They are actually not recyclable, and you would want to put them in your trash. With the packing peanuts, if you have a mail store nearby, you may want to ask them if they would like you to bring them the peanuts, because that way they can use them in packages that they send out in the normal course of doing business. So it's better to reuse than to have to put something in the trash. Next slide, please. Now, who doesn't like fresh strawberries? I know I do. And also maybe you get some cookies or croissants in a plastic clamshell container. What do you think? Are these containers recyclable or are they trash? Yasmin, let's let them know the correct answer. They are actually recyclable and are accepted at our city's recycling facility. Next slide, please. Now, this one is a trick question. A cardboard box wrapped in film plastic. How many of you, maybe you buy, in my case, that I buy canned cat food. It comes in a case like that. Or you buy bottled water, something like that, and it's wrapped. What do you think? Is it trash or is it recycling? Yasmin, let's tell them. It's actually both. However, you got to do a little bit of work. You have to take the film plastic off of the cardboard box, put it in your trash, and then, of course, the cardboard box is indeed recyclable. Next slide, please. Well, I hope I've given you some things to think about. I hope I've given you a few quick tips. If you have any questions or want any additional information, there's my contact information. Be happy to talk to you and help you out. Thank you very much, and back to you, Vic.
Hi, Marty. Nice job. So we actually do have 2 questions for you. Don't go away too quickly.
All right.
All right, so let's see. Let me find the first one. So the first one is, hi, Marty. I've heard mixed responses on this question. Hopefully you can put it to rest. I would like to recycle my shredded paper. Should I put the shredded paper in a paper bag or a plastic bag so the recyclers can see what's inside?
The best bet is for shredded paper only. And this is the only time you're going to hear me say that a plastic bag is okay in your recycling cart. It has to be a clear see-through bag, so it's very obvious that it's shredded paper. And it can only be the shredded paper, because they do at the recycling facility, they do what I call the pillow test. They will pick up your bag, they're going to smash it, make sure they don't feel anything else in it. Then indeed they do put it aside and it is processed as paper. But you don't want anything else in it. A brown paper bag, they can't see what's in it, so they won't be able to process it correctly. So a clear see-through plastic bag is the correct answer for that.
Thank you for that. What about putting plastic grocery bags or styrofoam that has a recycle symbol on it?
Well, just because something has a recycle symbol on it, it doesn't always mean that it's recyclable. Plastic grocery bags, for an example, they won't withstand the process that the breakdown process that would have to be used. So they are not recyclable. Styrofoam, again, the only type of styrofoam that is recyclable is the heavy, thick block styrofoam that maybe if you get a new computer, they put around the edges, or a new monitor or a new TV. Those are the type that are recyclable, and it has to do with the way the styrofoam is made. Block styrofoam is actually turned into picture frames, and it's even turned into molding for your baseboards or around the top of your ceiling as well.
Thank you. And last one, since it is Ask the Recycler, we'll take our final third question. Are calendars / notebooks with a spiral recyclable?
Yes, they are. If you want to make it easy on the recycling facility, you would want to try to take the metal part of, the spiral metal part out, and then just have the paper separate from the metal. But the recycling center, they do have magnets that they would be able to use, but it does make it simpler if you try to separate it out.
All right, thank you so much. And we do have a note in the Q&A from Megan. So she's saying recycle your plastic bags and film at Target. So if you do see the bins out in front of the grocery stores, you can definitely take it there. So thank you for adding that note there. And we are moving on to our second trivia question of the day. So how many million tons of plastic, so that's million tons of plastic, are dumped in our oceans every single year? So A, 1 million, B, 8 million, C, 20 million, D, 50 million tons. Got a few seconds to guess in the Q&A section, and then I'll go ahead and reveal that answer there. All right, let's go ahead and reveal that one. See some C's, some D's, some B's. So the answer is B, 8 million tons get dumped into our oceans each year. And that's the equivalent of dumping one garbage truck full of plastic into the ocean every minute. And if nothing is done, this will increase to 2 garbage trucks a minute by 2030 and 4 per minute by 2050. Yikes. Alrighty, so on that note, we will be going into our next community advertisement, and we do have Corey Downs here again to talk about a couple cool resources for you guys.
Yeah, this one is not directly necessarily related to the environment, but COVID has impacted a lot of Chula Vista residents and residents around the world. But there is some resources and some help that have been coming from government, local, state, and federal government. The information up here is if anyone has had trouble paying rent or utilities, they can apply for some assistance to help cover some of those costs. They can learn more at chulavistaca.gov/tenant help. Or by calling 619-271-1805, or you can also scan the QR code on the screen up there. There's also additional resources if you're not a resident of Chula Vista, but within San Diego County. You can go to www.erapsandiego.gov. So again, these are resources for individuals that have experienced financial hardship due to COVID and may need some assistance paying past due rent or utilities. So resources going out to communities that really need it. Next slide. Another great resource, if you're looking to reduce your utility bills, as I mentioned earlier, is Grid Alternatives. They're a nonprofit in San Diego County, or around the state, but they have offices here in San Diego County. And they work with homeowners, single-family and multifamily homeowners, to install solar panels on their home and bring down the utility bills, which is great for low-income households. But also they reduce pollution in the communities by installing these solar panels as well. So there's information, there's an email there, as well as a phone number if you'd like to call to learn more. It's 866-921-4696. And you can also find them at gridalternatives.org as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Corey. And then just at that point, just a reminder, we are recording this event, so you will be able to download it again or download it for the first time at our Chula Vista Clean website, as well as our South Bay Earth Day website. So we will have the recording, and then you'll be able to have the slides with you. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and move into our next presentation. So we have Ms. Ann Sheridan. She's a co-chair at San Diego 350 on the Food and Soil Committee. And she's here to talk to you about food, soil, and climate change. Thanks, Ann.
I'm here to talk about the intersection between agriculture and climate change. The slide hasn't advanced for me. I don't know if that's okay. There we go. Thank you. And the reason that is because agriculture is the second largest sector for emitting greenhouse gases. They're responsible for about a quarter. That does include forestry as well, but there are several reasons for this. One is livestock emissions, and then the other is what we call land use change. So that is cutting down forest, deforestation, or just taking any kind of native land and turning it into cropland. Next. So looking at that a little bit more in depth, the reason that livestock emissions are such a problem is primarily because of cattle. Cattle are the biggest culprits, and that just has to do with the way that they digest grass. Just their biological makeup. They produce methane. Methane is a very potent greenhouse gas along with carbon dioxide. And then also because we have so many animals, they all poop, and we have to manage their manure. And when we manure is actually stored in either a lagoon or there's various ways, but when it's mismanaged, I guess it kind of decomposes in an anaerobic way, and that also produces methane. And then animal products in general are just more resource intensive. Next. And then again, so this is a photo from the Amazon rainforest that you probably saw when people were talking about it. So plants, soil, they all store carbon, and anytime we're clearing that land, especially if we're burning it, we're just sending all that carbon, turns into carbon dioxide, and that is what's heating up the planet. And that's true for soil anytime we're just, disturbing it or tilling it. Next. So that's pretty grim, but the positive side of that is that agriculture can actually use as a solution to climate change. Project Drawdown is a consortium of researchers and scientists that looked at many different strategies for across all kinds of sectors to, how are we going to deal with climate change? And they came up with the top 100 strategies, and 25 of those are just have to deal with land change and agriculture. So it is a pretty important thing to look at. And actually 2 of the top 10 were I'm going to look at in a little bit more depth. So next. So number 3 out of that is dealing with food waste. And the problem with food waste is there's just so much of it. 40% of all food in the US is actually thrown away or wasted. That is the equivalent of 1,250 calories per person per day. So that's just a huge amount of food we're wasting. Next. And what that means is not just food is being wasted, but all the inputs and resources used to grow that food. So fossil fuels for transporting and refrigerating, and the fertilizer, the fresh water, which is, of course, is a big problem in California. And the money that goes into that wasted food is the equivalent of $220 billion each year. And just another visual, globally, this is the equivalent of us taking most of North America, plowing it all over, growing crops, and then throwing those crops away. So that's a big deal. Next. And then not only is that a waste, but we're actually not even disposing of the food properly. We're just throwing it in the trash. And in fact, organic matter is the largest component of trash in the US. That's true here in San Diego as well, where 40% is both food scraps and yard trimmings. And the problem with that is that because it's in this landfill, it is, again, producing methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas. California knows that this is a problem, and several years ago passed a law that said we had to address this and reduce organic waste in the landfill by 50% by last year, and 75% just by 2025. The law also states that 20% of that must be recovered for human consumption, because most of that, because a lot of that is perfectly edible food that is being thrown away. Next. So looking at how are we going to deal with this problem, we need to look at where that food waste is happening. And unfortunately, we are, as individuals and families, are responsible for most of it. 43% is happening in the house, after it's being bought. And in fact, 85% of all food waste happens in what is called consumer-facing industry. So both the home, but also restaurants and grocery stores, and just relatively little is happening on the farm and in manufacturing. Next. So there are lots and lots of strategies to deal with food waste. The first thing we want to do is prevent it from happening in the first place. And also, where there is food that is edible, we want to make sure that it gets to people that can use it and want to eat it, because we have a lot of food insecure people here in San Diego, and everywhere is an issue with that. So, but looking at preventing, we can standardize the date labeling. So dates on packages are just put there by the manufacturer. They're not a safety issue, and there's no regulation about that. And there have been attempts in Congress to pass laws around getting that standardized. We want restaurants and grocery stores to improve their tracking. Sometimes they're not even aware of the food that they're wasting, and just tracking it can help deal with that, because they don't want to be throwing money away. Even restaurant redesign, they realize that if they just give people smaller plates in restaurants, there's less food waste. And we want to resell, what's kind of called ugly fruit, but that doesn't really, people don't like it because it's cosmetically challenged, shall we say, but it's perfectly edible. And we also want to make sure that it's very easy for industries and businesses to donate the unsold food by improving the infrastructure, making sure the food can get from A to B, and giving businesses tax incentives to do so. Next. But of course, since we're the biggest culprits, that's where we have to look at the most, dealing with the food waste the most. And so here are some tips that you can do in your home. We want people to be very mindful about when they go shopping. Plan your meals, use your shopping list. You can learn how to store produce properly. Different produce has different shelf life depending on how you store it. Know what's in your fridge. As the saying, shop your fridge first. So just, and do regular kind of, clear outs of your fridge, knowing what's in there. You can batch cook and use the freezer, because things will obviously last longer in the freezer for your leftovers. Don't rely on those Best By dates, as I mentioned. And you can even use more of the plant, and wash instead of peel, or eat greens. Next. And then, of course, not all of the food waste is edible. So as we've talked about before, backyard composting is great. Hopefully you got some tips on how to do that. And then we're also, the next presenter is going to look at that curbside recycling or composting is going to come to most of San Diego by the end of the year. So that's pretty exciting. Next. Next strategy that Project Drawdown kind of named in their top 10 was adopting a plant-rich diet. So, and I just want to say that this is something that, even not from a climate perspective, we're always encouraged to eat more plant-based foods. This visual is actually the Canadian version of my plate, but the US looks exactly the same. This is just like nicer. And we want half of our food to be fruits and vegetables. We want a quarter of our food to be whole grains, and then that other quarter to be what they call protein foods. So that can be either animal protein or plant protein. But most people, the average American, is not following this diet. So that's why the USDA is encouraging us to move closer to this type of diet for health reasons. But next. But there are also environmental reasons to lower the amount of animal products that we're consuming. So this is a comparison of protein sources, so types of food that would fit in that last quarter I mentioned. And as you can see, beef is, so this is the amount of greenhouse gases that are emitted, right? So beef is by far the largest, the biggest problem in regards to that, because of the cow's biology and digestion. And different animal products can, have varying emissions, but always plant-based options are always going to be better. You can see beans and nuts are way down toward the right. But you could kind of pick and choose along, anywhere along the middle is going to be preferable to beef. Next. And then this is just looking at the same kind of information, but by diet type. So that top bar is, what is considered the standard American diet. And then just that next bar down, the reduced diet, that is just, people who adopted like a meatless Monday. So just one day a week committed to eating, plant-based meals. And even that, just that one day a week, you can see that significant drop. And then again, 100% plant-based, that last bar at the end, marked vegan, that is going to have the most impact. But, for people who aren't gonna, that can, if you've got the kind of average diet, to go all the way down to that is quite a change for people. So, I like to show that second from the bottom, that 2/3 vegan, which is just, so 2/3 of your meals eating plant-based, that is just a huge significant drop, and you don't have to give up any of your favorite foods. So that can be a positive thing for people to do. Next. And so, just here are some tips of just adding more plants to your diet. I always like to remind people that, because sometimes people get scared about the nutrition aspect, but this is just a quote from the American Dietetic Association that points out that you can eat a plant-based diet and it's actually can provide health benefits for you. So the first thing you want to do is just learn about nutrition. A lot of what kind of, especially if you're older, like I learned, what I learned about nutrition in school was very different than I think what's happening now. And unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation on the internet about nutrition. But, as we can see, even the kind of USDA, the government is promoting, encouraging us to eat more fruits and vegetables and plants. So you can just eat, add vegetables and beans to your meals that you're already cooking. Just add more of those. Another strategy is to focus on traditional cuisines. The American diet is very meat-centric, but other diets are across the world, they obviously have meat in them, but they're not, it's not as big of the part of the meal, in a lot of Asian cuisines and African cuisines. So that's a good way to get new recipes. And then you can always ask for plant-based alternatives when eating out. Pretty much every restaurant will offer that kind of option. Next. And then, this is just, using agriculture to store carbon. So I think this was discussed before about naturescaping, same kind of idea that, we're going to use compost instead of synthetic fertilizers. We're not going to till. We're going to plant a diversity of crops, use perennial crops and trees. Trees are going to store more carbon than some of the other crops that are planted. And so we can kind of use agriculture as this. It doesn't have to be a problem. It can be a plus. Next. And so just to finish off, here's some steps you can take, right away. Is just conduct a food audit of your food waste audit of your household. Sometimes just journaling about keeping track of what you're wasting can be very helpful. Incorporating more climate-friendly foods into your diet. Reconnect with how your food is grown. So there are organic and regenerative farmers right here in San Diego, and I can put a link in the chat to connect you with that. And then you can use these carbon storing practices in your own yard and grow your own food. And if you are interested in advocating for policy change in local government to promote some of these policies, then you can contact us at San Diego 350.org and our food and soil team. Thank you.
All right, Anne, thank you so much. We don't have any questions submitted right now, so I think we can go ahead and move on to our next presentation. So we have Dave DiDonato, also my colleague from the city of Chula Vista. He is a sustainability specialist, and he has been working on organics as a whole for the last, I think, 5 to 6 years now. So he's here to talk about the state of organics in Chula Vista. Dave?
Thank you, Vic. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Earth Day. Thank you for attending the 2021 South Bay Earth Day at home. Like Vic said, my name is David DiDonato, and I am a recycling specialist in the city's Office of Sustainability. I will provide a brief update on the state of organics in Chula Vista. So as Anne mentioned, the number one action is to reduce food waste. Then secondly, we must focus on recovering and reusing the surplus food, and then we can focus on recycling. Next slide, please, Yasmin. Speaking of recycling, later this year, Republic Services will be rolling out a new organic waste recycling program designed for Chula Vista residents and businesses. The city has an excellent yard waste collection program since the 90s. So the big change is going to be the addition of food waste and food soiled paper. Next slide, please. The residential organic waste recycling program will have two components. Single-family homes will continue to have a 3-cart collection system serviced weekly. The green yard waste cart becomes the organics cart and will accept food waste, food soiled paper, food soiled cardboard, and yard waste. Apartments and condominiums will either have green 32 or 64 gallon carts or green 2-yard bins for their food waste, food soiled paper, food soiled cardboard, and yard waste. Next slide, please. So upon the start of the program, all leftover food, food soiled paper, cardboard, and yard waste will be accepted in the cart/bin of the new residential organic waste program. You can see on the slide that yes, meat and dairy and seafood, as well as the paper takeout containers, and even the paper plates that Marty was telling you to throw in the trash. Once the program starts, those will go in this green bin. Next slide, please. Now, the commercial organics waste recycling program will collect food waste only. Commercial yard waste will be collected separately. Businesses will have either the green carts, 32 or 64 gallon, or the green 2-yard bins for their food waste, food soiled paper, and food soiled cardboard. Next slide, please. So when the commercial collection program is implemented, business-generated leftover food, food soiled paper, and food soiled cardboard will be accepted in the green organic waste collection bin cart. Again, yard waste will be collected in a separate program for businesses. So again, you can see it's all food waste and food soiled products without the yard waste for the commercial. Next slide, please. So let's talk about contamination. Plastic, especially film and foam plastic, and glass are some of the worst contaminants. These items on the slide should never go in your green organics container and should be placed in the trash. The items that are accepted in your recycle cart should be placed in that recycle cart. Next slide, please. So why should we recycle organics? Organics, like food scraps, yard trimmings, paper, and cardboard, make up almost half of what California's dump in the landfill. When buried, this organic waste will emit methane gas, a gas that is 84 times more potent than carbon dioxide. In California, 20% of the state's methane emissions come from landfills. Republic Services will collect the organic material and direct it into a compost manufacturing process. Next slide, please. So our outreach efforts in the next several months include educational mailers, newsletter articles, and social media posts that will provide updated information on program start dates and the more participation details. The city's clean web page will also provide updated information as it becomes available. Next slide, please. All right, any questions? Back to you, Vic.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, we didn't get any questions on that, but I'm sure everyone's mind is kind of working here because we're entering a whole new world with organics, right? So like Dave said, we will be here for you. The Office of Sustainability is developing a lot of good education pieces to help us on this next journey. So I'm excited for it. I hope you guys are excited for it. And yeah, I'm ready to get into food waste. All right, so moving on to our third trivia question. Third and final, I should say. Which of the following are negative impacts of burning fossil fuels? A, they contribute to environmental degradation and pollution. B, they harm local communities. C, they contribute to human health problems. Or D, all of the above. I'll give you guys a few seconds to answer in the Q&A box. All right, go ahead and reveal that, Yasmin. It is D, all of the above. Yeah, a lot of D's inside the Q&A box. So you guys know fossil fuels, pretty bad. There are a few things that we can do to get away from that. We can practice conservation at home, like Corey was talking about. We can use alternative transportation, public transportation, walking. We can ride our bike. Very good. And we can also consider using renewable energy sources such as solar power. And consider installing solar panels at our homes. So thank you for that, Yasmin. And then we're going to get into our next section here. And we have Dave again. So Dave, you just left. Now you're coming back. You're going to talk to everybody about gleaning resources.
Hi, it's me again. All right. So South County has several options for gleaning organizations. What is gleaning, you may ask? Well, that's a good question. So gleaning is the collection of produce that has been left over on trees or out in the fields. So residents that have fruit trees with excess fruit can contact one of these organizations, and they will send out volunteers to your location to pick all the remaining fruit from your trees. And then they take that fruit and they deliver it to agencies and kitchen that serve those in need. And then we have another page, next page. So I Love to Glean South County Food Hub provides a strategic capability to South San Diego County with a facility that increases the capacity for food recovery from businesses. This facility allows the staging, sorting, packing, and temporary storage of recovered surplus food that will be distributed to agencies and kitchens serving those in need. So they just had a birthday. April 17th was their first birthday, and in their first year, they have delivered over 3.5 million pounds of nourishing food. So happy birthday to South County Food Hub. If you would like to volunteer, donate to I Love to Glean, the South County Food Hub, then you can contact, their contact information is on the screen. And that's it. Thank you very much. Back to you, Vic.
All right, thanks, Dave. Really excited for this next presentation. This is actually, I'm going to go ahead and read her bio really quick. So Jen Metz Kane lives in a little town on the Big Island of Hawaii with her 6-year-old daughter and husband. She works part-time leading play and nature-based classes with Tinker Garden and is currently preparing to open a nature preschool in her community. Jen is also part of a local zero waste group, a former board member of Recycle Hawaii, and enjoys the challenge of making her daughter's Halloween costumes with materials that would otherwise end up in the trash. So really excited for this, a year-long trash-free lifestyle experiment. So Jen, take it away.
Hi, thank you. So wonderful to hear all the amazing programs. I'm very jealous of the programs going on where you are. Thank you for letting me be a part of your important webinar on this lovely Earth Day. So next slide, please. So it was May 2010, and I was living on the island of Oahu where I'd grown up, working for a conservation agency when I came across what I thought was shocking news. Our county was making plans to ship our trash to another state. And I was always interested in recycling and waste issues. And I had heard about other cities sending their trash away, but those places were huge with millions of people like New York City. But Honolulu? So I looked for protests to the Capitol, for irate letters to the editor, for newsreels with interviews with angry people, but I found none of this. So being the sensitive Pisces that I am, I looked inward and thought, well, maybe my view of this island community is skewed. Maybe creating a ton of trash is just part of life here. I mean, could I reduce my trash I produced? And it was this questioning that eventually led me to my year-long experiment to see if I could live without producing any trash at all. Next slide, please. So in this presentation, I am going to briefly go over the rules I created for myself and share some of the challenges and how I dealt with them, major triumphs from that year, and things I changed in my life that I still do 10 years later. Next slide, please. So I gave myself a timeline of a year and created some parameters. Basically, I would go out into the world and do my best not to create any trash along the way. And I would keep a blog to keep myself honest. Next slide, please. So my biggest challenge of the entire year was dealing with packaging. Next slide, please. So imagine grabbing a grocery cart and going into a grocery store and trying to buy food without acquiring any packaging along the way that would end up in the trash. Sure, fruits and vegetables were easy, but what about bread and yogurt and ice cream and soy milk and my Japanese rice crackers that I love so much that came individually packaged? So I ended up giving up a lot of what I had been eating that previous year. Next slide. I learned quickly that for some products, there were actually other options. The deli at 2 of my grocery stores allowed me to bring in containers to fill with meat and cheese. So that's how I got around the cheese problem. And then I started to buy my grains and tea and at a local natural food store that had an amazing selection of bulk food options. And I brought my bags. I didn't use the plastic bags there. I started to think of grab and go foods differently. Instead of a granola bar, for example, I ate a baked sweet potato. And if you ask any of my friends who hung out with me that year, I ate a lot of sweet potatoes. Next slide, please. I found a place that would refill my shampoo bottles, and I refilled my own deodorant containers with homemade versions that worked really well. I mean, they kept the stink away, although they did have to be kept in the fridge. But it was a huge waste saver and a money saver. Another waste saver and money saver was switching from feminine products to a menstrual cup. Ladies, I have not bought more than one box of tampons in 10 years. Think of that. Okay, next slide. So another challenge, obvious, straws. It seems. I'm not sure how it is in California now, but even today, it's still a challenge in Hawaii. You go to a restaurant, no straw, please, and they still often bring you a plastic straw. So I collected quite a few along the way. Next slide, please. So an unexpected challenge was dryer lint. This is a container of my lint I put in a tree, hoping the birds would take it for nests. They were not interested. And I would not recommend doing this now, as all the research has shown all that plastic from all the polypropylene that I might be wearing would most likely spread into the environment. So I would never try and do this again. Next slide, please. So I did find a tutorial on how to make lint clay. So I made a few things in lint clay. Okay, next slide, please. And the other big challenge was medical waste. Meaning things, all kinds like medical waste and toiletry waste. I wear contacts, so all the contact lens packets went into my trash, my birth control pill packaging. And this is a photo of me trying to make throat lozenges when I got sick. It was not fun doing this, and they didn't end up being very great. So that was a huge challenge. Next, please. So, but after a year, I had some amazing triumphs. Next slide, please. I produced less than a pound of trash. I still have my little bag here in 1 year, and it's all laid out there in the picture. So you can see in the photo, the medical toiletry waste on the left makes at least a third of my trash. Next slide, please. Another huge triumph was me learning how to compost. And I know you folks have had presentations already about that, and I hope those of you are inspired to compost if you don't already, because I was super wary of composting prior to this experience because of all the methods I found were so specific with measurements of how big it should be and how much of this or that and how often you do this or that. And then I found a tutorial for this trash can composter, and it was perfect because it was small. It didn't heat up quite like larger compost setups, and it took a little longer to get good soil, but it worked. It was huge. And that's how I got rid of a lot of my paper waste that I could not recycle here in Hawaii. Okay, next slide. And a surprising triumph was the effect my story, what I was doing, had on other people. Truly, I set up my blog to keep myself honest. I actually didn't even know what a blog was. My husband had to tell me what it was. And then to create a way to communicate with folks on ideas that they might have to share. And what ended up happening was that the blog allowed more and more people to learn about the experiment. And as a result, I was asked to speak at various events and do presentations. A local magazine wrote an article about my experiment, and friends would stop me in the hall at work and tell me how what I was doing was inspiring them to make changes in their own lives. So be the change you want to be in the world. That phrase took a whole new meaning to me. Next slide, please. So 10 years later, I'm not producing a bag of trash a year, I will be honest. Living trash free got really tough when I became a part of a couple and then had a baby. However, many changes I made in my life did stick, and here are a few of the big ones. Next slide, please. So I still bring eatingware with me wherever I go. This is a favorite yogurt shop back in the day. They would let me bring my own bowl and my own spoon to get yogurt. Next slide, please. We still don't use paper towels or paper napkins. Instead, I have cloth napkins around the house and a bin to put them when they're dirty. Next slide, please. And I'm still composting our food waste, tea bags, shredded paper, paperboard, all kinds of things, and using it to grow food. Next slide, please. So I was asked to share tips on how individuals can live more of a zero waste lifestyle. So I created some different award levels for fun. So you would get a trash-free silver medal if you bring your own shopping bags to the store, bring a straw with you when you go out, and bring your own coffee mug. And I should add water bottle to that as well. Next slide, please. So to get to the gold level, you have to do all that and then switch out those paper towels and start using cloth napkins. You can find them at thrift stores and garage sales for cheap. I just started collecting them. Anytime I was at a garage sale or thrift store, boom, boom, boom. They're like $1 each. And then soon you have a ton of them. Bring your own eatingware places. That's a bowl, a spoon, a knife, napkin, especially to potlucks when we can do those again. So you're going to get lots of looks from your friends, which is good because they're going to be inspired by what you are doing. Buy bulk foods and bring your own bags for the bulk foods if they let you. Those don't use the plastic bags that they have there. And then bulk products in general, if you can find them. And then ladies, again, I would try one of those menstrual cups. I have a lot of other friends who also swear by them, and mine is called, if you're interested, I have the Diva cup. Next slide, please. And if you want to earn that green medal to everything we've talked about so far, and then start composting. And I think everyone should try composting, but there are quite a few barriers, which is why I put it at more of the pro level with the zero waste. And also consider your packaging when you're purchasing. When I go into a store, I often choose one product over another because of how it is packaged and whether I can recycle it or use the packaging itself. And finally, start making your own stuff. I make bread and yogurt on a regular basis and some cleaning supplies. And it's so empowering to feel like, hey, I don't need to really buy a whole bunch of stuff. Next slide, please. So I wanted to give a big mahalo or thank you for listening to my story and share this photo of my daughter in her Halloween costume from a few years ago, since my intro mentioned my love of creating costumes using repurposed materials. In case you're interested, the petals are made from foil coffee bags that bend. They kind of bend in the middle. I cut and painted them and surrounded by an old headband that I don't wear anymore that fit her head perfectly. And her leaves are padded envelopes covered in cut up reusable shopping bags that were getting old. Anyway, so feel free to check out my blog. It's still up there. And I look forward to answering any questions you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen. I don't think we got any questions in, but there are a couple people saying mahalo to you, so just so you know that. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. So let's go into our next presentation. This is Nicolette Frank, and she'll be talking to you about upcycled fashion, just taking old clothes and turning it into some more modern threads. Nicolette?
Hello, and happy Earth Day. As you may have heard, my name is Nicolette, and I have basically been upcycling for about 7 years now. As you can see here on this slide, it was up for a second. I don't know if you can still see it, but if the slide goes back up, on it is a photo of one of my favorite pieces that I have ever upcycled. It is a photo of an old men's button-down shirt that I may have stolen from my dad. And I upcycled it about 3 years ago into a two-piece skirt and shirt that I could wear around. And that is basically the beauty of upcycling, is that you can take anything and curate it to your own unique style. Upcycling is the process of taking old, unwanted clothes and fabric to create something new and exciting. The fashion industry currently is one of the top polluters to our environment today. And by upcycling, we can help prevent the piling up of waste and even add some creative pieces to your own wardrobe. And here I want to show you some 4 pieces that I have recently upcycled that I think might be pretty interesting. So first, I have these 4 bandanas that I took and I sewed them all together to make one giant square. And so you might be wondering, why in the world would I make one large square with 4 bandanas? Well, that's the amazing thing about it, is that it is extremely versatile. I have used it to make a top by folding it up. I can wrap it around my waist and make it into a skirt. I can use it as a beach cover-up or even a headscarf. I can also, just in case, if I'm out with friends and we want to have a picnic immediately, but we didn't prepare for it, we can lay it on the floor and have a small little picnic blanket. The next piece is these overalls, which, as you can see here, do not have any bottom holes anymore, so your legs cannot go through them. But what I did with that, the reason they don't have holes on the bottom, is because it is now a cute little reusable bag that I can take to the grocery store or anytime I need to put something and carry it around with me. And you can use pretty much anything to create this. You can use an old men's t-shirt, you can use a pair of pants, pretty much anything, as long as you sew the bottom and add a strap or use the strap that comes with it. And there you go, you have a bag and you can make that easy switch to reusable products. The third thing that I have is this men's shirt. Hold on. So you can't see very well because I don't have a model to show it on, but it's basically the same thing as what was shown in the photo. The only difference is that it's long sleeve and brown. But this piece as well is a 2-piece skirt and shirt, and I absolutely adore this. I think it is one of the greatest pieces I have ever made, just to brag a little, because it can be used separately or together. You can wear both pieces out into a full set, or you can wear just the skirt or just the shirt, and it can fit all your style needs. And another great thing about it is that I think it fits any season. So you can use it all throughout the year. And so you're not just wasting clothes or buying more clothes to fit your needs. The last piece that I have is something that I made from another old men's button down. And like many other people during this pandemic and during the lockdowns, I've started to learn some new skills. One of them being learning how to crochet. So crochet has been very exciting for me. It's a very exciting activity, and I wanted to incorporate it into one of my pieces. I noticed that in my closet, I had a very large ball of unused yarn, and it just kept gathering dust, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I decided, why not put it to use? So for this piece, I turned an old men's shirt into a dress by taking out the front panels and crocheting 2 panels with the old yarn. And so now I have a fun little unique piece that I can wear whenever, and I think it makes it a little more exciting than just using the old men's shirt. So there are many ways to start upcycling, such as turning old shirts into bags or cutting the sleeves off an old jacket to make it into a vest. And if you don't know how to sew, don't worry, there are many ways you can still enjoy upcycling without having to know. Some people use safety pins, other people cut fabric up and tie it together into small knots, and some people even use hot glue guns. But so you can all enjoy upcycling no matter what. And with the time and creativity, anything is possible. I hope everyone is now energized and can go out and start upcycling. And if you have any questions about how to start upcycling, please contact me on my email or Instagram, which I think was on the slide, and I will be glad to help you in any way that I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolette. Very cool. Very creative on how you're getting that fashion done. And I'm sure most of us are inspired to do something like that with something we just have laying around. I don't think there's any questions. I have a comment. Great presentation, Nicolette. Can't wait to make that bandana hack. All right, that's cool. All right, so if we have no more questions for that, that is it for our speakers for this event, but we do have a couple more slides, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. Okay, so just to keep you a little more inspired on Earth Day, we have video spotlight here. This is Mr. Mark Vallon. He is a professor at Southwestern College, and he did a really cool video on soil, and he used an apple to kind of showcase, you know, this is how much actual soil we have on the earth that we can actually plant on. And it's pretty surprising what he ends up showing us all. So a really cool video that I encourage you to watch after the event. But I wanted to keep that here so that when it gets downloaded onto our website, onto the couple websites, you guys can go ahead and check that out. All right, next slide. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining us on Earth Day for South Bay Earth Day at home. We do have our contacts here. We have our website, we have our social media handles, we have our department numbers and emails. And if you did make it this far into the webinar, we did mention we will have some prizes for you. We have the grand prize of that awesome Revessel lunchbox, and then we have 5 sustainable zero waste kits with really cool, durable, reusable items. And we'll do that random. You'll be contacted if you do win one after the event, probably within the next week or so. So with that, thank you so much, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Earth Day.